I've been asked how I came to Krishna Consciousness, but the reality is that Krishna Consciousness, path of Krishna Consciousness, really came to me. I was happily engaged in my film career, just graduated from the London Film School after 2 years being involved in rock bands and having a lot of fun in my youth. And I was on my way to pick up my diploma from the principal because I was leaving London after 2 years in the next couple of days. And I got off, as I did every time I went to school, at the Tottenham Court Road station on the Underground. And there on my way up to the stairs, some Mataji, who I now realize was Jamuna Devi, she was passing out Back to Godhead magazines. And being in a generous mood, as this was a celebratory occasion of getting my diploma, I generously gave her 2 and 6pence, which was a pittance. And she handed me a magazine, and I had no idea what it was, and I was walking up the stairs, and I saw on the front of it, it said, Back to Godhead. Godhead is light, nescience is darkness, where there is light, there is no nescience. So I read this, and as I was finishing going up the stairs and approaching the curb, I wasn't aware of my surroundings so much, having been very much enchanted by the beautiful picture of Krishna that was on the cover. Never seen anything like that. And I looked up just in time to avoid being hit by a double-decker bus. And in front of my nose, an advertisement was rolling by. It said, in your head, you know it's right. So I connected the reading of what I was seeing on the front of the magazine with this advertisement. Oh, what does that mean? Because at that time we're into psychedelic drugs and everything was connected, and somehow you always saw the hidden meaning behind everything else. But it was a brief encounter, and I made my way over to the school, and as I approached the principal, she had my diploma in her hand, and she handed it to me. She says, congratulations, David. This is your diploma from the School of Illusion. I didn't know what she meant. I was at a loss for words. So then I went to the office where the charter airlines ticket was being made for me, and I was there to collect it. And from in the back of the office, the owner of that particular agency called out to me. He says, come in here, young man. And he said, would you like to go to lunch? I've never met this man in my life, just buying a ticket from their company. I said, well, actually, I'm a vegetarian, so there's not very many places. That's okay, I know where to take you. There's a vegetarian place very near here. So I said, okay. So he took me to lunch, and he sat me down. He said, you know, when I was your age, he said, I had a very profound spiritual experience, but I didn't take advantage of it. And now I'm older, and I'm really sorry that I didn't take that road. I had no idea why he was telling me this. Well, the next 2 days that I was in London were full of experiences of the synchronicity that kept happening. And it was all because of this magazine I picked up, which I hadn't really had time to read yet. But somehow or another, I knew it was connected. And by the time I was at the airport to take all of my belongings from 2 years in England to come to Chicago, which is my hometown, I was hoping that all of this mind-bending reality, the surreal nature of all these different events was going to be over. And I sat down in my seat next to a very large, heavy-set woman, and I looked out the window and felt a great relief. I had actually tried to call the Berry Street Temple because I was so piqued. My curiosity was so stimulated. But nobody answered, which is still going on today, unfortunately, in many temples, although it's getting a little better. And this woman who was next to me turned out to be an evangelical preacher. And she, of course, is a Bible thumper, and what she wanted to do was an 8-hour flight was to try to convert me to her form of Christianity. So again, I was burdened from my point of view by this talk of God and spirit and law, morals and all these different things. So by the time the plane landed, I was fully relieved that I would finally be in the cradle of the family and be free from all of these events and various confrontations. But my sister, somehow or another, didn't show up at the airport to pick me up. So I'm standing there in O'Hare Airport on a warm afternoon in May, and everyone's found their rides home. I'm all alone, surrounded by all of my bags, and I'm figuring, okay, I'll just take the bus. It stops here, and it will drop me very close to my mother's residence where I would stay. But as fortune would have it, a girl came up to me and she said, "Do you need a ride?" Now, I wasn't really very popular with the girls in high school or college, so it was very unusual for any girl to approach me, which made that event very unique. But I didn't want to trouble anyone. I was going to get on that bus, so I said, "No, thanks, I'm fine." I was actually my sister was going to pick me up, and I was going to have her take me to, there's an address for a Hare Krishna place here in Chicago. So I was going to have her take me there. But since she's on my way home, but since she's not here, I'm just going to go straight home. And the girl looked at me and she said, this is 1971, so Hare Krishna movement was not very well known at that time in America. The Radha Krishna album had come out, and there was a little bit of on the street about it, but not much. And she looked at me and she says, "Oh, the Hare Krishna place of temple." She says, "I've always wanted to go there myself. You stay here, and I'll get my car, and I'll take you there." And I said, "Gosh, where do you live?" And she told me where she lived. It was 20 miles the other direction from the airport, and she was going to drive another 20 miles into town to take me to this place. So she ran off before I could object. And I'm praying that the bus will come, because I know something's up. And of course, the bus didn't come. And she took me to this place, this apartment that the devotees, 3 devotees it turned out, had in the west side of Chicago. It was a very rough neighborhood, cheap rent, obviously. And so I went up and I said, "Listen, I don't want to leave my things in the car because they might be taken. Let's bring everything upstairs." So the 2 of us manhandled all the baggage from 2 years of being away at school up to the 2nd floor apartment and knocked on the door. And the door opened. It was around 7 at night. And it was a waft of incense just came out of the room. And Matahili, she was the first devotee I actually talked to. She opened the door. "Oh, come on in. We're just having the Bhagavad Gita class." And so I put all my stuff inside the door and sat down, and there was these 3 very strange-looking idols that had been placed in a makeshift altar in the living room of this apartment. And at that time, there was a devotee who was not yet a sannyasi, but he became a sannyasi in ISKCON and eventually left. But he was giving the class, and it was from the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and it was absolutely profound. The things he was saying, he was reading, and he was saying were things that I'd never heard before, and they just bypassed my ears and went directly into my heart, and I understood this is knowledge my parents should have told me. Why was this kept secret from me for so long? So the evening went on, and then of course they served this wonderful hot milk made with bananas and sweetener, and by 9:15 I was feeling very comfortable, and this girl had to go. And so the devotee said, "Listen, instead of going to your mother's tonight, why don't you stay here? You have all your stuff." I said, "Yeah, I got all my stuff here. I might as well just stay overnight at the temple and at this little apartment." And she left. I never saw her again. And of course, I never left. that was it. I had all my stuff. My mother was like, "Why aren't you coming home?" You know, I said, I found these people here. They're really nice." And of course, she was completely freaked out because at that time, you know, we were considered a cult in America. In fact, my mother ended up becoming one of the founding members of the anti-cult organization in America, only to many years later come with me and Bhasha Ghosh's mother to India and spend a month going to Vrindavan, you know, Mayapur, all these places that, you know, those decades earlier you would have thought would have been impossible. But that's how Krishna shed his mercy on him through his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, just tricked me into coming to the temple and being able to hear. So from that day forward, I understood that if we can just capture people's ears somehow or another, then we have a chance that that sound vibration will go to their hearts. And that's why I've tried to do through ITV, and I hope to do through making commercial feature films, that we can really reach more and more of those passageways of the ear, that oral reception, and give people the opportunity, the same one that you have and the same one that I've had. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.